It's actually really, really easy to get anywhere you want to go if you know two things. And that is exactly where you are right now and precisely where you want to go.
You're listening to the Science and Spirit of Happy podcast, where we discuss the rational, strategic, and psychological methods, but also the deep reasons and spiritual philosophy behind being happy down to the soul. Happiness isn't just hedonism. It's not even solely personal. Getting happy dramatically increases your effectiveness in every area, from business and finance to relationships. When we align with our own personal version of ideal, we end up not just happier, but healthier, more whole, more successful and richer, but even loving and loved. It's my opinion that getting happy for yourself is the absolute best way to serve the people in your life. I'm your host, Laura Lee Bowers, master healer and academic researcher. And this is another episode diving into the science and spirit of happy, the logical path to soul.
G'day, y'all! Welcome back. It's season 3. We are diving into how to not be like our parents. And again, as I was saying in episode 1 of this season, it really doesn't matter what kind of parents you had, whether you had incredible parents who maybe missed the mark in some ways because they were different kinds of people than you really are at a soul level. Or, maybe they were misguided by the culture at the time, telling them that good parenting involved something that wasn't conducive to your, development as a person, in your relationships, in the profession that is your calling. Or maybe they just had hindrances of their own, fears of their own, issues of mindset of their own, or, things that were passed down from their parents, patterns and programming that then shaped you into a shape that doesn't really align with who you feel like you truly are, or what makes you feel fulfilled, which I think are one in the same. So I discuss strategies and how to get to big goals easily. And pretty much what I'm doing in that is teaching people how to not be like their parents. I'm teaching people how to not be the way that their parents shaped them. And in doing so, we create the space and give you the skills to become the shape that you really are, that you are meant to be. I often talk about Aristotle and his kind of acorn to oak philosophy that says that everything you're meant to be, just like the pattern and everything that the oak should be, exists in the acorn, in the seed, right? So everything that is good, everything that is fully functioning, everything that is you existed originally, right? In the original you. So my goal for my work is to help people grow into the oak tree, or whatever tree that they really are. And how we know what we are is well, I mean, a lot of things, but our desires, our goals, right? Or our dreams, really. More accurately, it's our dreams, the things that we fantasize about. Maybe the things that we think are like completely off the wall that we can never have. Depending on how aligned or how allowing the environment was that we were born into, right? So what kind of soil the acorn was planted into, and what the water levels were, what kind of sun, was there, what kind of sun cover, what kind of shade did it have, all of these, what kind of minerals were in the soil, what happened along the way? Were there natural disasters? Was it ideal climate for, its whole life? That really shapes how we turn out. But there's a very big difference between, an oak tree that had been thwarted from, seed, sapling, etc., and onwards, and us. We have consciousness. We make conscious decisions. And our minds are malleable. They're plastic. So as much impact as our parents had on us and our parents' lives and their hopes and their fears and what they thought was right or wrong and how they treated us, as dramatically impactful as that is, it's still changeable. So that's what I teach. And we're going through the steps because no matter, if your parents were, misguided or just misaligned, or they were really, really harmed or harmful, maybe even all the way to being intentionally so, it doesn't really matter where you're coming from. It doesn't really matter how you've been harmed or hindered in your upbringing. The same principles are needed of anyone and everyone, regardless of where you're starting out. Now, it's really important to know where you're starting out, because this is actually, I think, the most overlooked aspect of personal development is figuring out exactly where you're at now. The very first personal power I teach is clarity. And I teach personal powers. They all belong to districts. So the districts are mind, heart, spirit, body. And there's 2 personal powers per district. So we start in the mind for a lot of different reasons that I do not have time to explain in this podcast, but I do go into this in depth in my courses in my membership. And there's even an ebook that you can purchase that will go into specifically the personal powers and how to not be like your parents. That's available wherever the links are in however way you're consuming this podcast. But clarity is the first personal power that we focus on. And a lot of people don't even know where they're at. And we're going to talk about that. But I think that if you're dismissing right now, if you thought that the intro line that I was talking about, that you need to know 2 things to get anywhere you're going, where you are and where you want to be, is obvious, then you might be suffering from a yah. And if you're familiar with my teachings, you'll know what yahs are. But essentially, it's a dismissal of something that's actually quite important. And this is something that I find is very, very commonly overlooked or taken for granted, that people are clear about where they want to be and where they are now, right? Where they want to be is this thing that they want in their minds, and where they are now is somewhere that they doesn't have that. But from my experience, the most successful people, and like all of them, okay, all of the most successful people constantly seek clarity. And from what I've experienced, seeing people who are massive failures, and these are typically people who are, parents of the people that I'm mentoring, to not be like their parents. These tremendous failures all have one thing in common too. And it's not that they're incapable. It's not that they're stupid. It's not that they lack, talents and skills and potential. It's that they do the opposite. They seek to be right instead of to seek to be clear. They don't seek to understand. They don't seek to know. They seek to prove themselves right instead of seeing what actually is right. So this egocentricity breeds failure. I've told this story before. It's one of the reasons, one of the pivotal moments that turned me from being this very, kind of eccentric, living on like the soul side. I traveled through, Asia studying healing principles, Eastern healing principles and spirituality, growing into, who I am today, growing into myself, growing into not being like my parents, healing my heart and my spirit. And I was living I was traveling the world, sort of living kind of just a little bit outside of the social norms, I didn't go to high school very much. I barely probably had a grade 10 education. The Stanley Cup playoffs were happening. And I'm from Vancouver Island in Canada. In Vancouver, the Vancouver Canucks were playing one of these, it was a very far along game. There was only a couple games before the Cup. So the whole downtown of Vancouver was just full of people. So we went over to see the game, and there was just people everywhere, right? The whole streets are just packed downtown, like everybody is out. And I bumped into these aerospace engineers at one of the pubs. And these gentlemen were in town for a convention and had come straight from the convention to the pub and were still wearing their name tags, which is how I saw that they were like legit rocket scientists. And I was absolutely taken aback by how open they were and how interested they were in someone who lived a little bit differently, just anything. They were so interested in finding out more information about things that they didn't yet understand. And you think about, I think collectively, we think about people who are like rock stars, and or rocket scientists. We use this term to actually to like exemplify being smart, knowing a lot of stuff. And yet we would expect, these people who know so much and are so good at whatever it is that they do and are so skilled, you expect them to be the ones who are like, I know stuff. I know so much stuff. I'm Stephen Hawking. I know like serious stuff, and what happens when you actually meet people who are at that level of achievement, at that level of embodiment of their purpose, where they're really flourishing as an individual, you will find that it is almost ubiquitous across the board. And I entered academia. This was really an eye-opening moment because I realized that I wanted to talk to people like this for the rest of my life. And I actually really miss academia for that community. And not that everybody in academia is like that by far, but, I sat on the Senate of my university. I was on curriculum committees. I worked for the VP, the provost of my university. I was in contact with the president of my university on a regular basis. I was mentored one-on-one by, just some brilliant professors. And the one thing that all of these just incredible minds had in common were they were constantly seeking clarity. They were constantly seeking clarity. They never approached, any problem at all thinking, I know for sure how this is going to turn out, ever. Even if in their areas of expertise, they still approach a problem with open-mindedness. And I think it's why they got there. It's how you get there. So clarity is a very, very, very big and important step that should not be overlooked, that should not be taken for granted. That should be something that we cultivate on a daily basis, because I think that is actually the foundation. What's the difference between those aerospace engineers and, some narcissistic person who has a bunch of talents and has not done anything with their lives, has ruined all their relationships, has ended up in financial ruin and, is like alone with, their deluded stories. The only difference between those people, there's probably some parental trauma and stuff as well, differentiating these people, which hopefully we'll sort out for everybody here listening. But the biggest difference between these people, I think, is in the way that they approach clarity. So the people who make more money, have better relationships, have better success in career, are better parents, have healthier relationships, they all seek clarity first. And clarity is, who am I? What do I think? is what I'm thinking right? Is it a true depiction of the situation? Like, what is actually happening right now? And what do I want to happen? And the way that we are programmed to relate to clarity is dictated probably before we're 3 years old. The research shows that, like, there is an overwhelming amount of our adult life that is actually created in our first year of life, infancy, 0 to 1. So 0 to 3 is the biggest stage of development. I believe 80% of the brain is built by the time you're 3 years old. So either your parents approached you with curiosity, right? Either you had one of those parents who was seeking clarity. You know, you cry and they're wondering what's wrong? What's wrong? What's happening here, right? They seek out how to approach the situation properly. Or you had parents who thought they understood. Stop complaining. Oh, you're upset over something that's not appropriate to be upset about. Or, well, I know what to do. I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to let you cry it out. I'm going to send you in the corner. I'm going to spank you. I'm going to threaten you. I know already what to do. And the parent that approached with curiosity, whoa, what is happening here? What am I thinking? Is what I'm thinking right? Does it reflect reality correctly? Maybe I should get some more information. Maybe I should seek knowledge outside of this situation, or maybe I should seek knowledge in my child, asking you questions, trying to figure out if you're, pre-verbal, what has been going on with you. And that curiosity, that seeking clarity will teach you to seek clarity, will teach you not to dismiss other people, will teach you not to dismiss knowledge, but to seek knowledge, to seek understanding. And the parent that approached the child thinking they already understood, right? This like egocentric way that a lot of people approach children, okay? Most, like culturally, we actually approach children in a very egocentric way, that they are second-class citizens. And so this is very, very common that, most children are approached in a way that is really dismissive of, what they think and how they're seeing things, right? Which teaches them to then not just dismiss other people in adulthood, but it teaches them from birth or from toddlerhood onwards to dismiss themselves. And this is how we lose touch with clarity, right? So this is probably the origin of those two polar opposite people, right? The egocentric person who can't learn anymore versus, the brilliant star shining from the openness to new understanding all the time. And P.S., it also makes you very happy to seek inspiring things. And we'll talk about that later. But when we're focusing on clarity, Maya Angelou and a lot of other people have said similar things, but Maya Angelou said, you can't really know where you are going until you know where you have been. So when I said that the two things you need to get anywhere you want to go is knowing where you stand now and knowing where it is you want to end up, knowing where you stand now really quite literally requires you to know where you've been. So we need to get clarity about the past, right? Because from where we are now, it is next to impossible to see our patterns, right? This is the realm of mindset. And if you're familiar with my work, you'll be familiar with reality IQ. And mindset is the lens through which we see and process everything on a mental level that happens to us and everything that happens within us. Okay, it's a big, big deal, and it's a really good place to start our journeys. And the things that can go wrong with mindset, I call reality IQ dents, divots, and deficits. And when we're in like a pure, objective kind of reality, when we can see things really clearly, that's a base reality IQ. And a high reality IQ is when we become the conscious creator, what I call becoming the conscious creator. And that's when you really enter that stage where you can be the rock star. Really getting to know where you are now has a lot to do with understanding whether or not, or where everybody has reality IQ dents, like at least, okay? So the most important part is we're identifying ones that really affect us in a way that is meaningful. So we're shaped by our past that we probably can't undo, anywhere near all of it or even most of it, but we can identify things that are really disrupting who we want to be and address those. So we can identify reality IQ dents, divots, deficits. And if you want to read more about this, I will explain them in the ebook in detail. They're also in the courses. But when we can understand where we come from and what's been harmed or hindered within us, within our mindset, within the lens, within how we're seeing things, how we're processing things, that's when we really know where we're at. And that's what I mean by knowing where you stand. Because anybody, if we don't know where we come from, if we can't see the past clearly, we don't know where we actually, how we ended up where we are, we don't actually know where we are relative to anything else. So we don't know what is true. And that's why people can't see their patterns, okay? People take for granted that the way that they see things is just the way that things are, that it's completely normal. That person who feels like a victim, who feels like they can't do anything, they don't realize that they could have been the rock star if they would have just been open enough to learn, if they would have been open enough to heal, to figure out where they come from so that they can decide where they're going. They think that they genuinely are victims. I just rented out an apartment for the first time ever and rented to a gentleman who seemed really charming at first. He made a little bit of complaints about the economy, which was a tiny bit of a red flag, but I'm also a political scientist and I can have discussions and discourse about, politics and stuff without it necessarily being a red flag. But anyways, this gentleman, as soon as he moved into the house, there was a massive red flag that came up where he started complaining about things that were already in repair. So things that I had even mentioned to him, this thing is being ordered right now. He started complaining about these things that I had already solved before he even moved into the place, and he wouldn't drop it. And I just knew from my work, from what I do, I just knew this person intends to be unhappy. And the downhill snowballing of this situation was so fast. And this person genuinely believes that they've been done wrong when nothing wrong happened. There was a minor mishap and, repairs that needed to be done that were all being done. And this person made one mistake, read an email wrong, made a bad decision about what he was going to do. And that just exploded into this massive scenario where this guy just broke his lease and peaced out. And now he's threatening to take legal action when he broke his contract. We have not done anything even remotely legally wrong. And this man is in his mind, he has been wronged. And there's nothing I can say, there's nothing anybody can say that is going to change that. And I know this is a pattern because it happened right off the bat. I know that he is coming from his last rental unit where he had this same relationship with his landlord, because he doesn't even see me. He doesn't see this situation whatsoever. It's just the lens, right? The lens is colored and marred and dented, and there's divots, and he's probably living in a reality IQ deficiency. And the next person who is exploiting this guy or taking advantage of him or screwing him over is probably going to be the person who either tells him that he can't take legal action, or, the person that that won't allow him to take anyways, it's just like you can't see your own patterns, okay? Even myself, you have to constantly be seeking clarity. Like if you know what healthful feels like, you know what a healthy body feels like, then when you get sick, you can remember and understand like, hey, there's something wrong here. Like I don't feel so good. Like I remember when I was feeling good and I don't feel so good right now. But if you've been sick since birth, since you were 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, if you've been feeling that way for that long, you don't have anything to compare it to. So you don't know that something is wrong. You don't know something is wrong unless you have perspective. Most stuck people have no idea that they are stuck. Okay? They have no idea that they could actually make decisions that would dramatically change their reality. They legitimately think that this just is what it is, that this is reality, that they are stuck. I have never, ever, ever known a person who is legitimately stuck, who cannot change their reality drastically. I'm not saying that real challenges don't exist. They do. They do. Okay. One of the biggest challenges that we have is this marring to our mindsets. And there's marring to the other sets too, in the other districts as well. And they're just as harmful. Now, I call it microtrauma. When there's been harm done to the sets, when there's been harm done to the lenses, this puts us out of touch with the personal powers. It's really, really difficult to see clarity if we have the microtrauma of being dismissed, for example. And I call it microtrauma, but it doesn't seem like trauma. Some of this stuff seems completely mundane. Oh, my parents were overprotective or, slightly neglectful. Neglect doesn't even sound like something horrendous, but it's one of the worst things that can happen to a child. Microtrauma doesn't need to be dramatic at all. It can be the complete opposite. It can be something that other people don't even notice at all. It can even seem like care, somebody trying to protect you, when what it's really doing is changing the shape of you that leads to you being in misalignment with yourself, which leads to not being happy, not feeling fulfilled, not being able to live your purpose. And the only way to know that it's trauma, because we're all different, right? Like different strokes, different folks. Maybe your parents' relationship was wonderful for them, but you don't want that kind of relationship. So now you have to figure out how to change your shape, even though somebody else would be trying to change their shape into the shape that you are. The only way that you know that it's microtrauma, right? That it's been harm or hindered to you is by getting clear about you. Getting clear about what happened, what really, really happened, right? What's happening. And getting clear about whether that helped or hindered who you truly are. So we're going to talk about what to do about this in the next episode. We're going to talk about the second personal power in the mindset district, which is connection. And if you want to know more about the entire process, I really suggest that you get the ebook, because the ebook is going to break this down a little further, as well as there'll be some exercises in it for each of the personal powers. So I hope that this was enlightening to you today, figuring out where you are so that we can get you to where you want to go. And I hope that, you follow along with this, because my strategies are really like just popping, your goals into a GPS. If you follow along step by step, you'll absolutely end up at your goals. So until next week, y'all, I am bidding you adieu, and I'll see you in the connection episode. Good day.